Thank you for joining us in today's prophecy briefing and slash update as we see what's going on around the world as it relates to Bible prophecy. And because we're not able to meet as a church fellowship due to the lockdown measures in place, I'm recording this remotely. As you can definitely see, I'm in my office right now. So in today's prophecy update, I wanted to share a couple things. There's three things I want to share with you. One is the current global crisis that's going on, the COVID-19, and just kind of the reality of the facts behind it. Secondly, what's at stake. And then thirdly, a message of hope for us all. As a quick snapshot of the COVID-19, that has become a global crisis. Every country around the world is facing this. Just over 500,000, maybe 600,000 confirmed cases. That's from the very beginning of the collecting of the data that has been reported. There's probably a lot more things that haven't been reported. There's been 131,000 plus that are recovered and about 27,000 deaths. Which is about 4.5% from the Johns Hopkins University website that's collecting all this, and this is at the recording of this particular message. Here in Australia, there's over 3,000 cases and about 13 deaths that has happened, which is 0.4%. Yet we're shutting down the entire country because of this. There's 7 deaths that have happened, 13 deaths, sorry. And yet just the other day I was informed that there are close to about 8 suicides that have happened here in Victoria, and which is really the national average per day when it comes to suicide here in Australia. And that's just a little more than half of the cases of the COVID-19 that's happened since it began. And this is just one day because of suicides, 8 deaths. The question that is frequently asked is, how deadly is this virus, this COVID-19 virus? The simple answer is, we don't know. We're not sure. In most cases of the death, it was because that has been reported because there was already other symptoms, other health issues, or underlining components to it. Most were over the age of 70 plus or so. And so now anyone with a positive test for COVID-19 will certainly be known to medical or clinical staff that's looking after them, and they're reporting this information. And if any of these patients does die, the staff will have to now record the COVID-19 designation on the death certificate, which is a little different than the usual practice for most infections of this sort of kind. Yet there is a big difference between the COVID-19 causing deaths and the COVID-19 being part of, or that's being found in someone who has died of other causes. I hope that kind of clears that up a little bit, that there's a difference between having it in you and someone actually dying of it. So making COVID kind of a notifiable might give an appearance of an increasing number of deaths. Whether it's true or not, it may not appear far more than a killer than flu, simply because the way deaths are being recorded. So this is something that has to be sorted out. And again, the simplest way to judge whether we have kind of an exemptionally lethal pandemic disease is to look at the death rates that are more people dying than we would expect to die in any other way, given or week or month. So if we were to track the flu or other seasonal viruses in the same way, we would also see kind of this exponential increase in statistics. We'll also see some other countries that are behind others, and a striking fatality rates as well. So you're going to see that there's a difference there, and I'll show you in just a second. The United States Center for Disease and Control, for example, publishes a weekly estimate of the flu cases. And the latest figures shows that since the September, timing, the flu has infected over 38 million Americans, hospitalized over 390,000, and then killed close to 23,000. This does not cause public alarm because flu is familiar. The data on the COVID-19 differs wildly from country to country. And you look at the figures for Italy, for example, and Germany, two countries in Europe. Italy has 86,000 plus cases that have reported and almost 9,000 deaths. That's a 9.9%. Germany has 50,000 plus cases and only 351 deaths. That is a rate of 0.5%. Another question is, do we think that the strain of virus is so different in these nearby countries as to virtually represent different diseases or cases or mutations of it? Or that the population are so different in their sustainability to the virus that the death rate can vary more than 20-fold or so. So if we ought to suspect this maybe a systematic error because of these data changes in information, the COVID-19 that we're seeing from different countries is not directly comparable. So just because one country is affected doesn't mean the other country is. On a global basis, for that matter, just for perspective purposes, we expect about 14 million people to die in the first 3 months. So there's about 14 million people that have died so far this year. That's about a figure of 150,000 people that die every single day is what estimates have been reported. Some more than others, but usually that's about the estimate. The world's 27,000 plus corona deaths represent 0.1% of that total. So these figures might shoot up, but they are right now lower than other infectious diseases that we would live with, such as the flu. Not figures that we would and of themselves cause drastic global reactions like we're seeing with this COVID-19. We don't shut down for the seasonal flu. So there's something else that's happening that's going on behind the scenes with this COVID-19 virus. And you can't trust the government. You can't trust the media. And what's everyone doing? They're trusting the government and they're trusting the media, which is why everything is so messed up. Why there's such chaos and confusion, because people are trusting in these two matters that it's hard to trust them these days. From the initial reported figures, when we first started out, China and Italy, for example, had suggested a death rate of 5 to up to 15%, which is pretty high. Similar to the Spanish flu, from what has been reported, which have been affected close to 1 in 4 of the world's population, which was between 1918 and 1920 or so. Roughly 500 million or so people got it, with about 50 million deaths. Given that cases that were increasing drastically, this raised the prospect of the death rates that no healthcare system in the world would be able to cope with. And this is why there's a bit of a panic going on in the healthcare system right now across the globe. The need to avoid this scenario is the justification for these measures that have been in place and implemented globally. The social distancing and self-quarantine and the lockdown and businesses closing up, etc., schools closing down. The pandemic emergency plans ready to snap into action in case this does happen again. I'm still trying to grasp and understand and process all of this information and why the world is in such panic and shutdown mode, because it doesn't make any sense why the world's reacting the way it is over this. Clearly, various lockdowns will slowly the spread of the COVID-19. So I get the information trying to flatline it. There will be fewer cases. But then when you start to relax the measures, there will be more cases again. So just because there's a flatlining right now doesn't mean it's going to stop it. But this doesn't need to be a reason to keep the lockdown. The spread of the cases is only something to fear if we are dealing with an unusually lethal virus. And that's why the way it is recorded, the data is so important. You know, what's really going on. And unless we tighten the criteria for recording the death due to only the virus as opposed to being being present with those who died from other conditions, the official figures may show a lot more deaths apparently caused by this particular virus than is actually the case. So what then? How do we measure the health consequences of taking people's lives and jobs and leisure and purpose away from them to protect them from an anticipated threat? What causes the least of the harm for this? Is it really worth it? Anyways, it's great that people are taking more and more measures and consciously washing their hands and practicing good hygiene and being more and more careful. And this is all good and helpful. But it seems that like the flu, you will still get it. You know, practice all these things, and at some point you're going to get it. You don't need to panic because the virus is not as bad as the flu. It doesn't seem to be that way. You know, from hearing from those who had it. So be wise, be careful, do the right thing. It is what we're saying right now. Now, on to the second main point I like to share with you is what's at stake. Well, every major crisis creates unexpected opportunity or problems, but it also creates great opportunities if you seize them and if you take them. For ministry-wise, but also on another side, you see that one of the opportunities that is currently happening that is slowly getting in place is the global government. It's getting ready. So this is a great test case for the global meetings. The Global 20, G20, met on video just the other day. So all these 20 leaders that came together, and how easily it will be for the Antichrist to take over all the countries in the world to dictate his agenda. The global government is slowly getting in place. And another thing is that is developing with this opportunity is, as one article mentioned, how the coronavirus is to make everyone on Earth to perhaps receive a vaccination with a digital ID. I'm not saying that it's the mark of the beast, but it's eventually this system will be in place for the mark of the beast. And this is exactly what's happening right now. There is a good chance that this particular COVID-19 is going to bring a global economic collapse. Many countries, many businesses, for that matter, can go bankrupt through this particular situation. There will be an eventual cashless system and society that will be in place. We're getting close to that. A one world currency that will be in place. And so this virus can be that turning point to push this agenda even more so. And so many other things that is happening behind the scenes that we don't know all that's happening or that we're being told. So we need to be ready. We need to be prepared, which leads me to the third point, the message of hope. With all that's going on, please understand God is in control, that He is sovereign, and we will get through this difficult time. We always have, everything in the past. This is just but a moment in history, and for that matter, for eternity. Now, with this message of hope, there is also, I want to share a message of urgency. There's an urgent message that we all need to heed, especially in this time. This time is short. Time is short for the return of Christ. The Lord is coming back soon. The grace period is closing up soon. We don't know how much time we have left or how much more we have to do, but looking at all the signs of end times prophecies that has taken place, as we see in Scripture, we're so close. The amount of people getting visions and dreams of the Lord's return is escalating on a daily basis and increasing like never before. And so it's time to repent and get ready for the Lord's return. God is sending more and more watchmen to warn people about His return. Judgment is coming. And it's time to wake up. And my prayer for each and every born-again Christian is to fully surrender to the Lord. To live all out for Christ. To leave nothing in the tank or on the field, if you will. So serve Him and give and be that difference maker that He's called each and every one of us to be. Share and live out the gospel of Jesus Christ. And perhaps today, perhaps tomorrow, or some other time, we don't know. We just need to always be ready for the Lord's return, or maybe if it's our time is up, our time to die. So, with all that, thank you for tuning in today's update. Until next time, God bless.